Welcome to another episode of SportsVibe. I'm your host, Arnav. A little bit of the change in the format for this year. Going to be doing top college football game recaps for the previous week, top college football game previews for the next week, and then we'll do the same thing with the NFL this week. NFL Week 1 kicking off tomorrow with Ravens versus Chiefs, AFC Championship opening game rematch, or AFC Championship rematch in the season opener in Kansas City, home of Super Bowl champs. So that should be exciting. But first, a big week of college football Week 1. Welcome back to our lives, CFB, the best sport, with the 12-team playoff coming up. Just want to start off with my Rutgers Scarlet Knights. I'm sure many Scarlet Knights fans, continue to watch this podcast, but based out of New Jersey. But Rutgers versus Howard. Howard was pretty impressive for an FCS team. I could see why they're the Mid-Eastern MEAC champions. I believe that stands for Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, but in the FCS, a really solid performance. I could see why. I mean, their quarterback, their running backs, mobile. Quarterback could throw. Defense played well, very stingy, allowed Rutgers, prevented Rutgers from getting forced down and ones. I mean, we saw that on the other side of the ball, but Rutgers really had a hard time moving the ball in the first half. Second half, Kamanungai really picked it up. 165 yards on the ground is a career high, tied with this performance against Temple. And the Scarlet Knights, they got the win. They rolled eventually, but it took a little while to get there. Eighth and Cali Manis making his debut at quarterback. Nothing fancy down the field, but just his ability to complete simple passes to his receivers, whether it be Sam Brown taking screen pass for 27 yards after they got a penalty, or whether it be anyone else. I mean, Dymere Miller scoring his first Rutgers touchdown. I mean, Christian Dremel on the slot, Seam Brantley. I mean, Scarlet Knights going to have a solid team this year. On defense, obviously no Mo Toure, Wesley Bailey returning from injury, but really solid Scarlet Knights defense, played well, out 7. That's what you expect to see out of their guys. I should say I'm tired. Tyree Powell's the other linebacker returning from injury, but next man up mentality. Cod Sanders made his debut. A lot of players, Daryl DeJayborn. I mean, a lot of them got Moses Walker got some playing time. I mean, these are high level players who've been on the bench, and it's going to be really their time to show up. Jay Patel, from the field goal range was great, but that's how Rutgers Howard went. Good win on Akron. Keep chopping onto the next game of the week, Clemson versus Georgia. Domination by the Dogs. I mean, number 1 versus number 14, but Georgia just blew them out. Clemson. I had a feeling Clemson would struggle. They're not the same Clemson as we've been used to seeing. Dabo Sweeney has to get with the times and properly, recruit. He recruits, but he needs to be able to use the transfer portal like a typical college football head coach, because this is just, I mean, it was an ugly loss. And sure, half is down 6-0. Happens. I mean, it's Georgia, but I mean, their offense really had no answers, and their defense ran out of gas, and that's what happens. I mean, it's just Clemson just not really with the times here, and Georgia looked like the best team in the country. Even without ETN, who was suspended, but even without him, I mean, on both sides of the ball, Carson Beck, the receivers downfield, the defense is ferocious as ever. I mean, holding a top 25 team to 3 points like they're an FCS team, I mean, remarkable. But I guess speaking of some FCS teams, South Dakota State taking on Oklahoma State, not really too much of a match there for OSU, the other OSU, I should say, because Ohio State coming up to talk about. But I thought there'd be more of a fight. Top FCS team returning a lot. Gronowski, pretty good quarterback, but Oklahoma State, Ollie Gordon, they really got off the ground. SDSU also lost a lot. I thought it could be potential upset bid there, but they had some flash plays. They did a lot better than most FCS teams would, but at the end of the day, I mean, there's a difference, especially when you get to the higher levels of FBS. But South Dakota State still looks like one of probably, could be at least a challenger for the title, if not go back to back. I thought they'd have more of a chance after really keeping themselves in a lot of games. Not even keeping themselves in a lot of games, blowing out FCS opponents left and right. This one does feel more satisfying, I guess, if than the Iowa win. If you could say they got manhandled by a better team. That one you couldn't really tell. So that feels like a respectable loss there by the Jackrabbits. Meanwhile, the Bison of North Dakota State taking on Colorado. Thriller came down to the wire. Colorado held on. Travis Hunter is him with ridiculous catches, ridiculous stat line. I believe he had 3 touchdowns, over 160 yards, and plays both ways. And I mean, NDSU had a chance, couldn't get it late, 5 yards short of the end zone. And they played a good game. Colorado, worked a bit on their offensive line, but still feels like a team that's going to struggle in the Big 12, but able to hold off the Bison, another FCS power. So moving on to Ohio State taking on Akron. This is another game where the defense struggled a little bit, and I should say the offense. Ohio State's offense struggled a little bit with Will Howard in the beginning. Akron's defense very solid, played well, unable to really do too much on offense, but was down 17-3 at the end of the first half. Played a good first half. Come to Piscataway next week, so should be an interesting contest there. But at the same time, Ohio State, Jeremiah Smith catching 3 passes from Will Howard, just an absolute stud. Ohio State, I mean, the running game, not the best. The O-line needed some more push. Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, they eventually did get going, and Akron didn't really have an answer. It took a while to get there, and it feels like Ohio State just struggles to run the ball against even in very inferior teams, and it really showed up there. Akron's run defense just really solid, physical, sniffing everything out. They put up a good fight for what it was worth, but at the end of the day, Ohio State is Ohio State. They rolled. Number 2 team in the country. They look like it. And another game that I wanted to get to, Virginia Tech versus Vanderbilt. The Tech versus Vandy. The Commodores with a huge upset win over the Hokies, another team that plays Rutgers in a few weeks. Virginia Tech returning a lot of production, a lot of offensive and defensive starters, one of the most in the country, and they just didn't look that great. They were behind. They tried to come back. I mean, they fell short, and a loss is a loss, and it didn't look to be too great unless Vanderbilt's supposedly really good now. But I mean, Diego Pavia, he looked really good. The defense solid. I mean, they put up. It felt like they might lose, but they were able to hold on and win even after they missed a field goal. Solid defense, really solid offense. Diego Pavia making plays with his legs. This is going to be an energized Vanderbilt team. I mean, you look at their non-conference, they can get the other 3 games. I believe they have Alcorn State, Ball State, Georgia Southern. I think they could get that, and they could find a way to win 2 in the SEC and go bowling. I mean, beating Virginia Tech, who people thought had potentially dark horse playoff aspirations. I mean, I think that even if Virginia Tech's a bit weaker, I think that shows Vanderbilt is a step up, probably closer to their 2022 season. Let's see if they can push for bowl eligibility. They look energized. I have not seen this out of Vanderbilt against a respectable team in a long, long time. So on to the next one, Penn State taking on West Virginia. Domination by Penn State. West Virginia, a lot of hype going into it. They could win. They could pull off the upset. It feels like we're talking about Penn State with Ohio State and Michigan. A lot of hope, a lot of optimism. This is their year to do it, and then they fall flat on their face. And at least Penn State plays a respectably close game. Like West Virginia just really fell flat, and even with the rain delay, they couldn't get much going. And Penn State looks as good as ever. They're great defense, great run game. We'll see if it works again against Ohio State. Probably not, because they're just that good. But I think the difference this year with Penn State is, their offensive creativity with Andy Kotelnicki designing plays. They had some big plays. I think they had more big plays 2 big plays in the second half, and 3 all year last year. Some ridiculous stat like that. If they can have a really good defense and run game, and Drew Aller takes another leap up with some creative play calling, get the receivers downfield open, I think this could be a really good year for the Nittany Lions. I mean, outside of Ohio State, I think they'll be favored in every game. Maybe they lose one to USC, who had a big win over LSU. But like I said, if they have a good defense, run game, Andrew Aller can get the ball downfield, and they can, kind of mix it up in the big games, I mean, they have a chance at really, maybe even pulling out, a close one against Ohio State. Who knows? But it feels like Ohio State's a little bit better. But other than that, I think Penn State has a very good chance at making the playoff at least 10-2. A very real chance for this team to go 11-1 and make some noise in the postseason, which the 12-team playoff really feels like it's expanded for Penn State, but Penn State might be able to compete the way their roster looks here. Offensive creativity is what's been holding them back in the big games, and if they got that figured out, I think they have what it takes to give Ohio State a good fight. I do think the Buckeyes are still better, but I think the Nittany Lions, I think that's how they can close the gap and make that one interesting. But moving on to the next game, Miami versus Florida. The U is officially back, and the Gators are not. So Cam Ward looks really good. And in the ACC, where so many teams have been faltering, the Canes, I mean, they look good. They look really good. Florida does not. I don't really know what more to say, but absolute in-state demolition by Miami. And they look like ACC frontrunners the way that Virginia Tech played, the way that Florida State's been going. I mean, I don't know. Georgia Tech is in the top 25, but Notre Dame getting out a gutsy win against the Aggies. Riley Leonard looked good. Defense looked good. Another top 25 team, Notre Dame able to win in a tough environment there down at Kyle Field. I should say, taking on Fresno State. Michigan, the offense doesn't look great. They lost a lot. They lost Corum, no McCarthy. Donovan Edwards didn't have a big game. The defense looks elite. Will Johnson with the pick six at the end, and they're going to be able to keep their team in games. But I mean, even against Fresno State, that Michigan offense really struggling. Colston Loveland a little bit downfield, but not really much there. But Fresno State put up a really good fight. They're a good group of five team. Eventually, they kind of got bailed out by some penalties, and their quarterback Mikey Keene threw almost 3 picks on the same drive, gave Michigan the win. But the Michigan offense looking like that again, going up against the Longhorns next week, it's just going to be a tough test, and I'll save that one for my next segment in the preview section. But quickly try to finish up over here. Idaho taking on Oregon, the Ducks versus the Vandals. Oregon really struggled there with Idaho. Dylan Gabriel had a really good stat line, I believe 41 of 49, 380 yards. But just surprising how many drives stalled and how close Idaho was. We'll have to see how they bounce back against Boise State, but not exactly super impressive for what people are saying. There's the second team in the Big Ten behind Ohio State, maybe even could beat them. I don't know. Like we'll have to see how they can bounce back. I mean, the stat line is there. We'll see how they do against tougher competition. USC, LSU, Trojans, big win there over the Tigers. The defense looks much better than last year. The offense looks as good as last year. Miller Moss, the real quarterback. I mean, they're getting some big plays downfield and stopping the Tigers, and they able to get into the end zone. I mean, this team, it might be in the upper echelon of Big Ten contenders with Penn State, with Ohio State, with teams like that. I mean, they might be right next in line. We'll have to see, but they look a lot better than last year. Able to punch an SEC team in the mouth. And finally, Florida State taking on Boston College. 0-2 Seminoles, which is pretty unfortunate against Boston College of all teams. I mean, no one thought they would really be able to do that, but they look good. I mean, Thomas Castellanos, the rushing attack had 268 yards on the ground. Bill O'Brien really setting up his team to know what they want to do. But this really felt like it came out of nowhere. Florida State really, a bit with the injury curse last year, could have made the playoffs. But this year in the 12-team playoff, they already lost to Georgia Tech, and they got blown out by Boston College. It's the magic is gone in Tallahassee, and the team is out top 25, and they do not look good. The defense is giving up points. The offense, DJ Uiagalelei, I mean, he's really struggling to, complete passes. I mean, downfield. I mean, he's unable to find the timing with his receivers, and they don't really have a great run game to make up for it. So it's just, on the offensive side, not great. The defensive side, they've been gashed. I mean, they're supposed to have a really good defensive line. So it's just, playoffs might be out of the question there for the Seminoles in 2 weeks, and who would have thought? But that's my recap of week one. Of some of the other notable games: Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Iowa with big wins over lower level opponents. But the Iowa offense had 3 receiving touchdowns in the second half, which is, and I believe like 2 in the last 2 seasons somehow, only getting it to their backs and tight ends, which crazy stat. But I mean, I know it was against an FCS opponent, I believe Southern Illinois or Illinois State, but I mean, they look a lot better on offense. Like they have a good scheme, Cade McNamara. If they can even have a decent offense with their level of defense, I mean, this could be the 12-team playoff. I mean, this could be one of the teams that benefits in the Big Ten. With their schedule and everything. So they could potentially get in at 10-2. So watch out for the Hawks. Best offense in a while might be what it takes to complement that elite defense, send them to the playoffs. We'll see. But I guess shifting gears now to week 2. The preview, we got Rutgers versus Akron. Rutgers should roll here. Expect Akron to put up a good test early. It'll be interesting to see what their quarterback situation looks like. Ben Finley, pretty banged up in the Ohio State game, had to be pulled out. Played with grit, played with heart. Their backup quarterback, forgot his name, but Akron just he was also really good, to be completely honest. They had some nice packages. But I still feel like the Scarlet Knights are gonna have what it takes. Yeah, I mean, I don't really see any issues there. It might be a little bit of a tougher test, but I'm interested to see, what that which quarterback they bring in, for Akron, if Ben Finley returns or if their backup returns. Pretty mobile guy in his own right, so I'll be interested to see how that one goes. With that being said, the big game of the week, Michigan taking on Texas. That one should be a really good game as well. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be tough for UT to really for UM to keep up with Texas. I mean, the Texas Longhorns offense is going to be firing in all cylinders. Isaiah Bond and the receiver is going to be a step up. Better offensive line, better quarterback in Quinn Ewers. I mean, one of the best in the game. And UM, I don't think they have what it takes to match with Davis Warren. Their offense, I mean, if they keep going 3 and out, they're going to end up with a Rutgers type of problem in the Big Ten, where their defense is going to have to carry. And their defense is really good, and they'll keep the team within the game for a while. But the Texas offense is going to be going at it, and they also have a pretty good defense too. So they're going to make life harder on that Michigan offense. And we saw Fresno, I think, on both sides of the line. I think especially with how much better their offense is going to be, their defense is going to have to be on the field a lot, and it's going to get tired, while Texas is going to enjoy more frequent offensive success and then have time to rest up with their defense making big plays. So, because the Michigan defense is so elite, they'll probably be in the game for a while, but the way the Texas defense is, they can make it tough for Michigan to really score points the way the Michigan's offense is. And meanwhile, Texas is going to have an easier time scoring points. They're not going to blow them out, but I'd expect Texas to be able to get a comfortable victory here. First Michigan loss since 2022, which feels like a long time. But alas, Georgia Tech, Syracuse. We got Kyle McCord taking on the upstart Georgia Tech team, 2-0 with the win over Florida State. Should be a good ACC battle. You got Arkansas, Oklahoma State, SEC Big 12 action. Arkansas with the big 70-0 win over Arkansas Pine Bluff. They looked good, but Oklahoma State, a ranked FBS team, as I mentioned, demolition of South Dakota State, the 2-time FCS champions. So now a big test for Arkansas here early, which should be a really good game. Iowa State taking on Iowa, the big battle of Iowa football. Iowa should be favored in this game, but especially with their defense and offense. We'll see how it comes together against another Power 5 team. Always an exciting chapter in the Cy-Hawk rivalry. Both teams coming off of wins as well. Kansas taking on Illinois, rematch of last year. Kansas, I believe, ranked 22. Illinois coming off, I believe, a shutout win over Eastern Illinois, but much tougher competition. I think the Jayhawks have what it takes here. And then USF taking on Alabama should be interesting. Good group of 5 team. Good, demolition of their FCS opponent, but much higher step up. Last year, these two teams played. Bama only won 17-3. But this year, Tyler Buckner, quarterback, Alabama absolutely looked really good against Western Kentucky, absolutely demolishing them. Their young 17-year-old receiver played like a superstar, Ryan Williams, and I think the Tide should have no problem rolling here. Alex Golish and the go offense, I think it's going to get shut down. Pretty good team in the group of 5, but it's just going to be a different game going up to Tuscaloosa. Tennessee taking on NC State should be a good one, ranked unranked. Wolfpack struggle with Western Carolina, but I think Tennessee is going to be the team to win here. The Vols look really good. Nico Iamalava and that passing attack. Western Michigan taking on the Ohio State Buckeyes. I think we should see more of the same. Western Michigan put up a good fight against Wisconsin, but Ohio State is a different team. I think Ohio State's elite defense and elite offense is going to show. Will Howard's going to get some more work done, and I think Ohio State's going to have to work a little bit harder for this one than Akron. But I think at the end of the day, Ohio State should be fine. Primetime game under the lights in Columbus should be a good one there. App State taking on Clemson. Can App State pull the upset again? I mean, it's very possible. Don't rule it out. Clemson looking to bounce back from the disastrous Georgia loss, while App State looking to keep the magic going. I mean, they've beaten Michigan. They've beaten A&M very recently. I mean, probably not too far of a long shot there. And finally, excuse me, Boise State taking on Oregon, battling between the Ducks, who really didn't have a great win over Idaho, an FCS team. They're a good one, but still expected to be one of the national contenders. And Boise State coming in with Ashton Jeanty, 6 touchdowns, 267 yards, a ridiculous performance there. And Boise State's going to go to Oregon with some mojo, and a lot of people have Boise State as the team to get the playoff bid in the group of 5. I think a good performance at Oregon, I think, will be will be good to have. I mean, even if they don't win the game, if they can compete with one of the higher up playoff teams, I mean, this could potentially be a rematch too. I mean, so this would be good. It's a good statement game for either team to make. Is Oregon really a national contender? I think if they blow out a very good Boise State team, I think they have a chance to do that. Boise State's defense, not necessarily the most impressive week 1, but if Oregon can blow out Boise and get back on track, I'd say, that puts a lot of stock into Oregon. If Boise State able to pull the upset, then that puts a lot of stake into them. As it is, they're probably going to be the group of 5 contender. That would basically stamp their ticket, I believe, in week 2 if they hold on. But a really interesting game. Can Oregon bounce back from Idaho and assert themselves as a national contender? Can Boise State make a statement, keep it close, or even potentially get the upset and really cement themselves in that 12-team playoff picture, assuming they win out the rest of the way, in the Mountain West? But with that being said, that's the week 2 preview, top games. A lot of good college football. But the final thing I'd like to discuss here is NFL week 1. It starts tomorrow between Ravens and Chiefs. The Ravens and the Chiefs. Can Kansas City three-peat? We find out starting tomorrow with their title defense against Lamar Jackson. I mean, that AFC Championship game, even as someone who likes the Chiefs, a little bit heartbreaking. I mean, Zay Flowers, getting the ball stripped by L'Jarius Sneed and some interceptions. Long way back, but I mean, if they can beat the Chiefs, we've seen the Chiefs come back and do in the playoffs, but good statement game there for the opener. And meanwhile, for Kansas City, no Hollywood Brown this week, but some good receivers in that lineup. And you got Xavier Worthy, you got Rashee Rice, Zay Pacheco, Kelsey, good defense. So can Kansas City get off to a good start once again? I think they have a good shot. We'll see. It's welcome back to the NFL. I think that's a great way to start off the year. Heavyweight fight in KC. I think the Chiefs favored by about 3 points. I think that's about right. Another big game I was going to say Philadelphia. It's in Brazil between the Eagles and the Packers. Eagles favored by 3. Debut of Saquon Barkley. That high-powered offense includes A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jahan Dotson now. Jalen Hurts, no Kelsey, but a loaded offense. The secondary, that they got C.J. Gardner-Johnson back. They got Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. I mean, Neil Bird's team, the Packers, Jordan Love, A.J. Dillon. I mean, a team that went all the way to the conference championship or divisional round. and looks to only be getting better. So it should be another good heavyweight battle there. Really exciting opener in Brazil on Friday night. First time I think an NFL game's been on Friday, and well, they're the Black Friday, but a Friday night game in an international country. I mean, I think that should be really, really exciting. Big showcase. Another one between the Vikings and the Giants. My team, the Giants, they're well, maybe not too exciting to the average NFL fan, but I think it could be a game where New York Football Giants and surprise some people. Taking on Minnesota with Sam Darnold coming in. I know they have Justin Jefferson. I know they got some good playmakers on the defensive side of the ball, but I mean, I feel like it's going to be hard to pass that ball against the new D line of with Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence. I mean, the offense, I'm excited to see how that looks. Devin Singletary getting carries with Saquon Barkley out, Eric Gray, Theo Johnson at tight end, Daniel Bellinger, Malik Neighbors. So let's see if he can make a week one statement. He looks like the first true number one receiver since Odell Beckham, but a core that includes Slayton, Hyatt, so many other Giants receiver, Wandale. I mean, it's a talented group. Can Daniel Jones put it all together? We'll have to see. A tough schedule ahead for the Giants, but I think week 1 and week 2, the Giants get wins over the Vikings and Commanders. Should be a good start to the season for New York, and see how the new pieces come together. The offensive line too, to protect Daniel Jones with Jermaine Illuminor, Greg Van Roten, John Runyan, all there to protect DJ, and Malik Neighbors, the star acquisition to throw to. Cowboys versus Browns. Tom Brady going to be in the booth for that one. That's a high-level battle there between Dallas and Cleveland. Browns defense very solid. Cowboys putting it back together with CD and Dak and their team, Micah Parsons. I mean, it should be a good fight. How can the Cowboys rebound from their bad ending to the season last year? We'll see how they stack up. They lost a lot in free agency. They haven't really done too much, but they still have a good core. Going in one last time this year, going for the Super Bowl. We'll see if they can really be an NFC contender after all the changes. And the Browns trying to keep pace in a loaded AFC North division. I think, this is a good test for them as well. Rams-Lions in the Sunday night slate, little playoff rematch, Matt Stafford, Jared Goff rematch. I don't think storyline can get much better than that. Detroit, just heartbreaking the way they didn't get to Super Bowl, but this is another chance for them to start putting it together again. And I mean, it's going to be exciting. Going to be an exciting season. And finally, to wrap it all up over here, we got the Jets, 49ers, Aaron Rodgers returning from his injury. Let's hope for the best for this season. Hope he stays on the field. If so, I think the Jets could have a really solid year. They also have a really good defense, good run game. Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, very solid team. Can Aaron Rodgers put it all together for the JTS? If they do, I think they could have a good year. 49ers, of course, looking to return to the Super Bowl with their talented loaded roster. Trent Williams signed his deal, and San Francisco with the home opener against Aaron Rodgers. I believe is, you used to grow up in California and everything. So a little bit of a homecoming week 1, but should be a really good start, a really good test for both teams, elite on elite. And yeah, hopefully Aaron Rodgers can stay healthy, not only for throughout this whole game, but for the season, because Jets fans in the NFL deserve to see what Aaron Rodgers can bring to that team. We've seen the wisdom. Can we see it on the football field and what the results look like? I think the Jets are thinking playoffs, and Niners probably thinking Super Bowl as well. But with that being said, this has been another episode of SportsVibe. SportsVibe rebranded, but episode 62 with a big week 1 recap of college football, week 2 preview, and finally the NFL week 1 preview. My name's Arnav Sarkar, and as always, we will see you next week.